So, having, dealt with features of written discourse, and also started discussing some of the pertinent features of spoken discourse today, basically in lecture number 5 that you have already available on the platform of the university, which is titled, we'll be dealing basically with more features of spoken discourse, basically paralinguistic features. Paralinguistic features. So then the basic focus in this lecture is to make you familiar with more salient properties of spoken discourse as compared to the written one. Okay, we'll be basically highlighting another category of spoken discourse features, namely paralinguistic features. Okay, these are of paramount importance because they constitute key ingredients to an understanding of spoken discourse. So before we identify these properties, in detail, first of all, we need to define the term paralinguistics. So what is paralinguistics then? So, simply defined, paralinguistics is the study of vocal and sometimes non-vocal signals beyond the basic verbal message or speech, also known as vocalics. So then, from this, key term, which is paralinguistics, we extract, the concept of paralanguage. Then what is it? Then, paralanguage? It is claimed in the literature to include accent, pitch, volume, tempo, modulation, and fluency. So, some researchers also include certain non-vocal phenomena under the heading of paralanguage, such as facial expressions, eye movements, hand gestures, pauses, and the like. Okay, so all these things are also said to fall under the heading of paralinguistics. However, the boundaries of paralanguage are said to be unavoidably imprecise. So we can't, identify, boundaries between a category of paralanguage and others. So we have overlapping, let's say. We have a kind of overlapping. It's not, final, but it's, something that is of an overlapping relationship. It's imprecise, according to Matthews 2007. Is this clear? Is it clear?
So we can that paralinguistics is a feature of spoken discourse, another feature.
Features, not only one feature. We will be dealing with this. Features, of course. We are still dealing with spoken discourse. Don't you have lecture number 5 in front of your eyes?
Yes, Professor, we have it.
Yeah, follow with me. I'm reading in the lecture. Okay? I'm reading in the lecture. Okay. Is it clear?
Yes.
Then,
yes, ma'am.
Okay. Then paralinguistic phenomena occur alongside spoken language. So no speech about paralinguistic phenomena such as facial expressions, non-body language in written discourse. No speech about that. Because as I told you before, there is no, direct interaction with the writer or author of a piece of writing. We can't see him or her. And there is no room for, discussing paralinguistic phenomena. Also, there is no, indication of stress, of intonation in the written, piece of work. We simply have, language. We simply have language with its proper grammatical structure, with coherence, cohesion, and the things we discussed before about written discourse. Okay, it should be very, clear, this point. Okay, so then paralinguistic phenomena occur alongside spoken language, interact with it, and produce together with it a total system of communication. A total system of communication. So a total system, an integral system of communication does not only include what is spoken, what is seen, what is heard, let's say, as speech, but other paralinguistic phenomena. Other paralinguistic phenomena that you cannot detect and unless you pay heed to how speech is produced, how speech is manipulated, how the speaker uses body language, how he expresses himself in ways other than language. And this is what is referred to as paralinguistic phenomena. Okay, more importantly, the study of paralinguistic behavior is part of the study of conversation. Yes, as I have just said, we don't have the right, we can't we can't speak about paralanguage in a written discourse, because we need conversation, we need speech, we need dialogue, which is one genre of spoken discourse. That is to say, conversation is one genre of spoken discourse. So the conversational use of spoken language cannot be properly understood unless paralinguistic elements are taken into account. And this is was early emphasized and claimed by Abercrombie in 1968, okay, which is one of the famous phoneticians, because this is the duty, this is the job basically of phoneticians, to deal with this paralinguistic phenomena, and also people who do specialize, who are experts in communication. Phonetics and communication have, a very, big role in understanding, or to understand paralinguistic phenomena associated with spoken discourse as being associated, to or with spoken discourse. So then, one of the most important structuring or demarcative devices in spoken discourse is prosody. This is very, very important. So we have to underline this key term of prosody. And I still remember that we discussed this in phonology. And one of the students asks me, what is Professor prosody? What do you mean by prosody? This is, very important. So do you still remember how I did define this term in the class of phonology? Prosody, what is it? Generally speaking, what is prosody then? I'm waiting for an answer, please. Prosody as spoken in the class of phonology. Yes? Abdelmoula. Yes, Abdelmoula. The floor is yours.
It is the bachelor's of right.
Your voice is lagging, Abdelmoula. Abdelmoula, your voice is lagging. I can't hear you clearly. Abdelmoula? Is it now okay? Abdelmoula, is it now okay? Another student, please. Another student. What is prosody, as we define this in the class of phonology, in relation to, prosodic features or phenomena? I'm waiting for an answer. Quickly, please. Are you surfing to find some definitions or what? Please, quickly.
I think that it is a type of metrical phonology, like
No.
Mona and...
No, Sabah. No, 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 please. No, 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 no. Please, quickly. Osama. Osama. Where are you, Osama? Sabah.
A prosodic feature has a relation with the pitch and
I didn't
right.
say, Sabah, I didn't say prosodic features. I said prosody, generally speaking, prosody. Muhammad. Rashid. Osama. Umayma. What is prosody? So simply defined, your attention please. Abdelmoula, simply defined. Prosody, Ikram. Do you have an answer for my question, Ikram?
I guess prosodic, it's mean that there is a variation in a speech sound, which means that the ear passes after leaving the larynx.
Part of the answer. It's part of the answer. So please, prosody is a sub-branch within phonetics first. It is a sub-branch within phonetics, which basically deals with, those, elements, those phenomena which are not, part of the written system, but they manifest or are manifested at the level of speaking. They are only manifested at the level of speaking, basically dealing with intonation, dealing with stress, dealing with tempo, dealing with the tone, dealing with length, and other phenomena. Generally speaking, this is prosody. It's a sub-branch of, phonetics, and it's also a scientific investigation. It's scientific in character. It's scientific in nature, in that it deals with those phenomena which are not apparent, which are not prevalent in the written system, but manifest themselves only in speech. Only in speech. So that when we write English, let's take the case of English, with which you are familiar. If we write in English language, we never indicate the intonational pattern of a sentence, and we never put stress on different words. But these are things which are basically associated with the spoken language, we identify them according to our speech, according to the way we articulate words and sentences. The way we articulate words and sentences, saying in this sense that written language or written system is neutral. It is neutral. That is to say, we never identify these prosodic phenomena. but they are rather and exclusively associated with spoken discourse or spoken language. Okay, so then prosodic features subsumed under paralinguistics. So prosodic features subsumed under paralinguistics have been studied as potential correlates of discourse structure in speech. You have to underline this, please. It is very, very important. Let me repeat this. Prosodic features subsumed under paralinguistics have been studied as potential correlates of discourse structure in speech. So they are correlates of spoken discourse of speech. They have nothing to do with, the written language or the written system. So prosodic features help listeners to process and understand the incoming message. So in order to understand the intended meanings of an articulated, sentence, utterance, discourse, generally speaking, a communicative act, let's say, because the discourse is in the end a communicative act. We need, to process the prosodic features. We need to process them, because we may have different meanings, as you know. We may have different meanings according to, these prosodic features. We may have different meanings. So we will see these, with examples, basically in association with intonation, okay? As such, they play an important role in discourse, particularly in the spoken one. So in the remainder of this lecture, we will elaborate more on such features to enable you grasp their discourse functions. So you have to bear in mind that paralinguistic features have discourse functions. Paralinguistic features have discourse functions. And we will, focus on, a number of these paralinguistic, features. To begin with, we have the first category of such paralinguistic features. We have prosodic ones, prosodic features. And you know that we already discussed some of these in, class, basically, in relation to, the class of phonology. We basically focused on stress as being a prosodic feature. It is so. Then, what is meant by prosodic features? Okay, prosodic features is a cover term that refers collectively to variations in pitch. Variations in pitch. In this case, we mean intonation. They refer collectively to variations in pitch, intonation, loudness, sentence stress, and rhythm. Sentence stress and rhythm. These extend over the whole utterance and are superimposed on speech sounds, that is to say suprasegmental. And you know this, we already discussed this in class. We said that suprasegmental, we have suprasegmental units as we have suprasegmental features. The suprasegmental units you are familiar with are those which we already discussed on Tuesday, as parts, as components of the universal prosodic hierarchy. Basically, the syllable, the stress foot, the prosodic word, and the intonational phrase. What is of our interest in your opinion? Since we are dealing with the discourse, we are not concerned with words, but we are concerned with the words as occurring in sentences and larger, fragments of speech. What's our concern here? What is the component of the universal prosodic hierarchy that interests us here? Yes, please, quickly, it's clear. Sumaya. Intonation. Very good. Intonational phrase. Intonational phrase. I'm speaking about, as I have just said, I said what is the component, what is the constituent within the prosodic hierarchy that concerns us here. Since we are dealing with longer sentences, that is to say utterances and discourse, it is of course the intonational phrase. It is of course the intonational phrase. And also, we may be referring, to prosodic words. We may be referring to prosodic words. If we have, for instance, a speaker mentioning only one, word. One word may stand for a whole utterance, as you know. One word may stand for one utterance, and this word may be associated with a given pattern of, pitch, with a given pitch pattern, or it may be associated with a given stress, okay? And it may have different meanings. The variation in, pitch and variation in stress may give us different meanings. Okay, this is the point. So as I have just said, these, prosodic features extend over the whole utterance and are superimposed on speech sounds. A simple distinction to be made between the remaining paralinguistic aspects of speech. So pay attention. So, we need to make this, slight distinction between, paralinguistic aspects of speech and prosodic features. The former, so paralinguistic aspects. What do we mean by paralinguistic aspects? Pay attention. You have to, make sure of this distinction. Paralinguistic aspects of speech are, more related to what we see. That is to say, body language and gestures. Body language and gestures. I'm sorry. So paralinguistic aspects are more related to what we see, body language and gestures, whereas prosodic features are more connected to what you hear during the communicative action, what you hear. You have to bear this distinction in mind, please. It's very important. So paralinguistic aspects refer to, what you see, basically body language and gestures, whereas prosodic features are more connected to what you hear during the communicative action. Okay? So this is a very important question which I'm addressing here, and for which we will try to find answer. What would an utterance lose if intonation were omitted? This is a critical question indeed. What would an utterance lose if intonation were omitted? Suppose that you have an utterance without a given pitch pattern. So then it's really, you will find it difficult to understand the intended meaning, whether it is a question, whether it is an order, whether it is an exclamation, whether it is simply a confirmation of a given, fact or a given idea, okay? So then, the first prosodic feature will be, dealing with, in association with, to show the important function that intonation may play in discourse is intonation. Then, what is intonation then as a prosodic feature? Intonation makes it easier for the listener to understand the meaning a speaker is trying to convey. This is very important. Intonation, as you know, is a feature of the sentence. It's a feature of the utterance, and it's very important. As a prosodic feature, it is very important for the listener. It helps the listener. It enables the listener to understand the meaning a speaker is trying to convey. So Roach in 1991 states 6 main functions of intonation in spoken language or spoken discourse. So this is very, very important. Roach 1991 states 6 main functions of intonation in spoken language or discourse. For the purpose of the present lecture, we will focus only on the attitudinal function of intonation, which proves to be the most relevant for the analysis of spoken discourse. The attitudinal function of intonation. What does this mean? What does the attitudinal function of intonation mean? So it simply means that this is an intonation that enables the speaker to express emotions and attitudes, which adds a special meaning to spoken language. Okay? Then it should be clear that it's clear from it's self-defined. Indeed, it is self-defined, since it is, called, it is labeled attitudinal function of intonation. Then it simply means that it helps the speaker, it enables the speaker, it entitles the speaker to express emotions and attitudes. And this, of course, is going to add a special meaning to spoken discourse or language. It is a means of expressing finality, confidence, interest, surprise, doubt, joy, pain, irony, anger, boredom, and so on. It is a means of expressing finality, confidence, interest, surprise, doubt, joy, pain, irony, anger, boredom, and so on. Then, 4 types of attitudinal intonation are ascertained in the literature. Pay attention, 4 types. 4 types of attitudinal intonation are ascertained in the literature. Number 1, falling intonation. Number 2, rising intonation. Number 3, fall-rise intonation. And last one, rise-fall intonation. Okay? So these, 4 classes or subclasses of, attitudinal intonation, are very important for, an understanding of the intended meanings in spoken discourse. Let's elaborate on each type independently. To begin with, we have falling intonation. Then, falling intonation, it means that tone is falling at the end of the utterance, which means that the pitch of the voice falls within time. So you may start, rising your voice and falling it. And this falling intonation will, indicate some kind of meaning. It would indicate some kind of meaning. It is the most common type of intonation in English, used for asking and giving information in normal, quiet, and certain style. Okay? So it is the most common type of intonation in English, used for asking and giving intonation in normal, quiet, and certain style. So consider, these examples that you have, in this, part of the lecture. This is, the end of the news. This is the end of the news. So this is basically for the purpose of informing. I'm absolutely certain, to indicate certainty. Certainty. Stop playing. Stop playing. This is an order. Where are you from? This is a question. It's basically a yes-no question. And you know that WH question. And you know that WH questions are all the time associated with falling intonation. Okay? This is clear. Now, rising intonation. A rising intonation. Rising intonation means that the pitch of the voice rises. Maybe it starts falling and then it rises at the end of the utterance. I can express a number of various emotions, such as non-finality, surprise, doubt, interest, politeness, lack of confidence. Consider again the following examples. I found them. I found them. I found them. I found them. But they were not at home. You see? This is the meaning. This is the intended meaning. It's not like when you say, I found them. It's different when you have falling intonation. Then what makes the difference between I found them with falling intonation and I found them with rising intonation? What makes the difference then? Yes, please. I'm waiting for an answer, please. What makes the difference between I found them and I found them? Rising intonation, falling intonation. Sumaya.
Failing intonation, I think that it's information. I found them. It's an information. But in raising,
I'm confirming. Please. It means that I'm confirming that I found them and they answered. Yes.
Yeah. And
this is
raising, it's surprise.
But they were not at home.
Yeah.
They were not at home. I found them, but I didn't find them at home. This is the point. This is the point. Okay. Second example. You must write it again. You must write it again. You must write it again.
Professor?
Sumaya?
In failing intonation, it's like order.
You must write it again. No, it's not an order. An order is when you say you must write it again. You must write it again. This is order. With falling intonation. It's not with rising.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
You must write it again. Another answer? So the answer is already here between parentheses. What does it mean then? The answer is already here between parentheses. Sabah.
Like condition, you must write it again, but this time get it right.
It's like, warning. It's a kind of warning. It's a kind of warning, and at the same time, it's a kind of advice. Yes, I will give you the right to, rewrite it, but this time try to get it correct. This is the point, okay? I have to leave now. I have to leave now. What makes the difference, please? What makes the difference between saying I have to leave now with falling intonation and I have to leave now? What makes the difference between the two? Please? Yes, Sabah.
Maybe the first one, I have to leave now, give just information, just because I want to leave, but
it's time for me to leave. It's time for me to leave. Yes, that's true. But when you say,
because I am getting late, give a reason or why I want.
Yeah, I have to leave now. I have to leave now. With rising intonation, this does not mean that it's time to leave, but I am late. I am late. That's why I have to leave as soon as possible. You see, I have to leave as soon as possible because I'm getting late. It's different from when you say I have to leave now, meaning that I have to leave because it's time for leaving, and this is the difference. In all the above examples, rising pitch conveys an impression that something else is to follow. This is the point. So rising pitch conveys an impression that something else is to follow or to happen. Okay. Additionally, a rising intonation is basically used in yes/no questions. You know this, You know this. You are familiar with this. So, if you still remember, in the course of spoken English in first semester and also in fourth semester, you were informed that questions in English are divided into a number of categories. So that we have yes/no questions, WH questions, tag questions, and other categories. So the main difference between yes/no questions and WH questions as far as intonation is concerned is that, for yes/no questions, the intonation is rising, whereas for WH questions, it is falling. So an example here, was she glad to see him? Was she glad to see him? Was she glad to see him? So it's a rising intonation because we have yes/no question. dependent or introductory parts of an utterance. If he calls, ask him to come. You see? So in the first part of an introductory, the introductory part of an utterance, we have rising intonation. If he calls, ask him to come. Okay. The first part of alternative questions. Would you like an apple or an orange? Would you like an apple or an orange? You see? Direct address. Sir, you dropped your notebook. Sir, you dropped your notebook. Okay? Enumerating items in a list. And you are already familiar with this. You still remember that in the course again of, the subject of, spoken English, we told you that, yes, it is true that, declarative sentences, normally intonation is all the time falling in the end. But it is when we have a very brief, short declarative sentences. But when it comes to, declarative or affirmative sentences, which include listing of items, if you still remember. If they include listing of items, then what happens? The intonation is going to be rising on each given item and falling only on the last item. And the example you have here is she bought bread, cheese, and tomatoes. She bought bread, cheese, and tomatoes. It means that it's rising on, all items, but falling on the last one. Huh? Is it clear? Sorry.
Yes, Professor, it's clear for me.
Good. Yes. What about the other students? What about the other students? Clear?
It's clear.
Yes. The other students, please. Is it clear?
Yes, Professor, it's clear.
What about the other students? What about gentlemen? Ladies and gentlemen, is it clear? Yes, please. Yes. Where are the other students? Where are the other students? Mohammed. Abdelmoula. Garmat Abdelmoula. Osama Mazuki. Okay, I will carry on my, explanation of the content of this lecture. We have then tag questions. When the speaker is not sure that the answer will be yes or wants your opinion. Case in point is, it is a beautiful town, isn't it? It is a beautiful town, isn't it? The speaker thinks that the town is beautiful, but asks for your opinion and confirmation. Okay? So, we should infer that in spoken discourse, essentially in conversations, standard patterns of intonation may not change depending on the intentions of the participants. This is very clear. The table given below highlights such change. So, what is meant here is that trying first to make you with the most, frequent, occurrences of intonational patterns. This does not mean that these have fixed, functions. They don't have fixed functions, but they may know variation. These patterns we are discussing may know variations depending, of course, on the intentions of the participants. It depends on the intentions of the participants. So the table that is given, below highlights such change. So your attention, please. So you have changes of standard patterns of intonation in discourse. So when we have a statement, so the standard statement is he bought a new house. So it's clear that the intonation is falling because for the simple reason that it is a declarative or informative sentence. But when the intonation is rising, we are not simply expressing, we are not simply giving a piece of information, but we also express surprise. He bought a new house. It means that we are expressing surprise. Is it clear? Is it clear?
Professor, it's clear.
Okay, Sumaya. Okay, Fatima Zahra, Sabah. Okay.
It's clear, Professor.
Okay. Another, point is that for special question. So if you still remember, for the usual patterns of intonation for questions is that yes/no questions are all the time associated with the rising intonation. WH questions are associated with falling intonation. But this may, vary according to the intentions of the speaker. And this is why we are saying that intonation is attitudinal. It means that it expresses attitudes and emotions. So what is your name? It's clear that this is a WH question and it's standard intonation. But what is your asking? It's standard intonation asking for information. When I ask you what is your name, that is to say, will be answering me saying my name is Sabah or Umayma or Ikram or Fatima Zahra, okay? Or Muhammad or Yasin or Abdullah or Osama and so on. What is your name? Here we have rising intonation, which is different from the first one, which is standard. More interested, surprised, or asking to repeat. So suppose that I said, what is your name? It means that you already mentioned your name and I can't really articulate it. I would like you to repeat your name because it's a surprise for me. It's a new name for me. For instance, when you say, my name is Ara, for instance, Yara, I'm sorry. My name is Yara. My name is Bayan. My name is Husban. You see, so here people may be asking you to repeat your names. What is your name? So it means that I'm surprised. It's a very beautiful name. It's a nice name. I would like you to repeat it, okay? General question. Do you have a car? So of course this is rising intonation because I'm asking for information. I would like you to say yes or no. Yes or no. The answer is yes, or the answer yes is expected, But when I say, no, I'm sorry. For standard intonation, the answer may be yes or no. But when I say, do you have a car? Do you have a car? The answer yes is expected. So in this case, when this yes no general question is associated with following intonation, this means that I'm expecting that the answer would be surely yes. Okay. In case you have a request, so a polite request, of course, is going to be associated with the rising intonation. Polite request is going to be associated with the rising intonation. Could you give me a pen, please? 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 Polite request. But when I say, could you give me a pen, please? Could you give me a pen, please? So you see, it sounds like a command. The answer yes is expected. It sounds like a command, and the answer yes is expected. So this may happen between, a mother asking, her daughter or son to give her a pen, professor asking a student to give him or her a pen. Then it should be the first one. It should be polite request. If the teacher had a good relation with the students. But if this is not the case, he may be, saying, could you give me a pen, please? In which case, it will show us the attitude of the professor towards his student. That is to say, he considers that he is the boss, and students are, just submissive. They should be submissive to his or her orders and commands. Okay. Now we shift to the second category of the third one intonation, which is full rise pitch, or what we also call dipping. Full rise pitch, or what we also call dipping. This means that the pitch falls, then rises. Full rise simply means that it first falls and then rises. This pattern shows limited agreement, response with reservation, uncertainty, or doubt. Please, your attention, please. You have to pay attention to these intonational patterns, because in the exam, I may be giving you a very brief conversation and then asking you to identify the, intonational patterns and justify for what reasons you are stating such patterns. Because in such case, students will be, expressing, they will be showing different attitudes towards the different intonational patterns used. I may be giving you, for instance, a professor and a student. I may be giving you a conversation between a boss and employees. I may be giving you a conversation between a mother and a son or daughter. I may be giving you a conversation between two friends, in which case you will be asked, very brief one, in which case you will be asked to identify the intonational patterns and justify them. It means that you will be giving justification for, your opinion about the proper, intonational patterns that you will be indicating or identifying. Is it clear this?
Yes, clear. Thank you.
Is it clear this?
Yes, Professor, it's clear.
Abdelmoula.
You are now
Yes,
unmuted.
Professor, I was having a problem in connection. I just fixed it.
Okay, that's okay. That's okay. Yes, Mohammed, Rashid, Osama, Anas. Is it clear this? Muhammad, are you attending or not? Muhammad, are you attending? Usama,
Professor,
are
could
you
you give us
attending?
another? Yes, I am attending, ma'am. Could you give us another example of this fall and rise speech?
Yes, we have examples. I will be giving you. Please, Usama. By the way,
Yes,
Usama, do you have the lecture before your in front of your eyes? Lecture number 5.
Yes, I do have it, ma'am.
Yeah, follow with me, please. Everything is there.
I will. Okay, I will.
Everything is there. I'm just explaining and elaborating. Okay, Usama, is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
You are now unmuted.
Professor,
Yes,
could you please
Abdulmola.
which page we are in? I just entered. I don't know. Which page we are in?
Follow the right page. For intonation. We are still dealing with intonation. Follow rise pitch. It's page 4. Page 4, Abdulmola.
You are now unmuted.
Is it okay, Abdulmola?
You are now unmuted.
Directly
Then,
after the table.
Yeah. Yes. Fall rise pitch dipping. I said that this means that the pitch falls then rises. This pattern shows limited agreement, response with reservation, uncertainty or doubt. Let me give you some examples. You may be right. You may be right. You may be right. It is impossible. I am not mistaken. I'm not mistaken. I'm not mistaken. He may be honest. He may be honest. Huh? So who would like to clarify what do this rising intonation? What does this rising falling rising intonation include? Falling in the beginning and falling in the end. You may be right. Then what does it mean? This? What could you understand when somebody says you may be right?
We're now unmuted.
Sir.
Yes, Abdulmola.
He is interested in his answer.
Huh?
It's so that he is interested in his answer. So he may be right.
Or he is surprised, ma'am.
No, it's not. He is certain. It shows that you have agreement. Is it clear? When I say you may be right, you may be right. It means that I do not agree with you 100%. But it's only limited agreement. It's only limited agreement. This is the point. It is impossible. It is impossible. What could this express this?
Doubt, ma'am. Could you express doubt?
Yes, sure. If I'm not mistaken,
So, uncertainty.
Very good. Yeah. He may be honest. He may be honest. It's response with reservation. Response with reservation. Okay. Now a rise fall pitch, or it is what is also called peaking. Peaking. A rise fall pitch. This means that the pitch rises and then it's the opposite of what we have just discussed. It's the opposite of fall rise. Now we will have a rise fall, meaning that the pitch rises in the beginning and then falls. Is the opposite of fall rise pattern. It is used to convey strong feelings of approval, disapproval, or surprise. So examples. It's impossible. It's impossible. It's impossible. Yeah. What does this express?
Surprise?
Yes, sure. You were first. You were first. You were first. You were first. What could it express?
You are now unmuted.
Surprise.
Yes, Abdulmala? Yes?
It's doubt or surprise.
Yes, Abdulmala?
You are now
It
unmuted.
express doubt or surprise.
Sure. Any other answer? You were first. You were first.
You are now unmuted.
He's confirmed it. Maybe
Huh?
this. He confirmed that he was first.
But now he is no longer first.
Is it like blaming him?
It's disapproval. Yeah, it's a kind of disapproval. Yeah. All of them. All of them.
Surprise, maybe it's surprise.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
approval.
Yeah. Approval or surprise.
Feeling
Yes.
approval.
Yeah. He is honest. He is honest. He is honest.
You are now unmuted.
Approval?
Yes, I can't hear you because you are speaking at the same time. One at a time, please. One at a time. Sabah.
It's expressed feeling.
Feeling of what?
Feeling of approval.
It's true. It's true.
A strong feeling that the speaker is
100% true. Yeah.
yeah.
Good.
You are now unmuted.
I have a simple question.
Sure.
So, what makes the difference between the simple falling and rising pitch and this one of deepening and peaking? Because sometimes I see that even in a rising pitch, like could you give me a pen, please? It starts with a falling intonation at its ends with a rising one. So, what does make the difference between deepening
So,
and
Abdulmala, because you didn't follow with us from the beginning till the point we are reaching, I have just said that we have standard functions of intonation, standard ones. What does it mean having standard functions of intonation? That is to say, the intonational patterns you are familiar with. It is usually claimed in the literature that, for instance, a yes-no question is associated with a rising intonation. A WH question is associated with a falling intonation. An order is associated with a falling intonation. A request is associated with a rising intonation. So these are what we call standard functions of intonation. That is to say, the functions you are familiar with, which are usual, which are normal, which are the standardized ones. But or I have just also said that these standards of these functions, these standard functions of intonation are not fixed ones. They may change. That is to say, the intonational patterns, the pitch patterns of utterances may vary according to the attitudes that the listener, the speaker would like to, express attitudes and emotions or feelings, in which case we may have intonational patterns reversed. That is to say, we may have a reversal. We may change. That is to say, simply put, we may change the intonational patterns, in which case we will, be expressing different attitudes and emotions, different attitudes and emotions. And you have to bear in mind that for discourse, for the analysis of discourse, basically, particularly the spoken one, meanings are not fixed, as we said before. When we have a yes-no question, this does not necessarily mean that this should be associated with a rising intonation. For the speaker, he may rather put falling intonation on a yes-no question, in which case he intends a given meaning. He has particular intentions, or he does it on purpose to express a given attitude or a feeling. And this is the point, Abdelmoula. I hope that it's clear.
You are now unmuted.
Is it clear, Abdelmoula?
You are now
Clear,
unmuted.
Professor. Thank you. Clear.
Okay. Yes. Yes, I'm still with you, please. I'm still here. So to conclude, the most prevalent discourse functions of intonation are, so this is a kind of recapitulation of what we have tried to discuss in this virtual session. First, intonation can signal to the listener what is to be taken as new information and what is already given. Number two, it can indicate when the speaker is making some sort of contrast or link with material in another tone unit. And number three, it can convey to the listener the kind of response that is being expected from him. And this is, the outcome of the points we have been discussing in relation to, intonation. Okay. So, I don't know whether you have, you have on the platform. I don't know whether you already have a kind of activity that to which I already gave the title lectures 4 and 5 related activity. I don't know whether you have it or not.
You are now unmuted.
It's not included.
Lectures 4 and 5 related activity. Huh?
Yes, Professor.
You are now unmuted.
No, there is not.
It includes
Sabah,
after
yes,
this. We have it. It includes after this course.
Huh?
Lectures 4 and 5 related activity.
Yes. Do you have it? Yeah. Then here you have activity number 1. Activity number 1. Listen carefully, dear students. Listen carefully. Listen. Of course, you will be sharing. For students who don't have it, other students will share it with you. Sabah, could you share it with your classmates, please?
Yes, Professor.
Okay. Let me first clarify what is expected from you to do. Huh? Listen. You have activity number 1. The question is the following. Consider any kind of conversation, interview, or dialogue you like, and try to answer the following questions. Who controlled the spoken discourse? Who used the most fillers and why? Who interrupted the most and why? Are there any instances of overlapping? Try to justify their use. Number 5, what words do the participants use most? What does this show about their state of mind? Number 6, what is the power relationship in that situation? Number 7, how is intonation manipulated by the interlocutors? Number 8, are there any instances of discourse markers? What discourse functions do they perform? Is it clear? Yes, is it clear?
You are now.
Dear students, Miss Sabah Talib is going to share this activity with you. I would like you to work on it carefully. Take it seriously, please. Take it seriously, because you may have the same question in the exam. You may have the same question in the exam. So as it is mentioned in this activity, you choose any kind of conversation, interview, or dialogue you like, and try to answer the questions that follow. The questions that follow. And you have, how many questions do we have then? How many questions, please?
8 questions.
Very good, Osama. 8 questions. So please take it seriously. Take it seriously, because we will be answering, we will be discussing all your, assignments. That is to say, for students who would do the work, we will be discussing them on virtual sessions. After finishing the content, after finishing the discussion of the content of the different lectures that we still have to work on. Okay, I still have 2 more lectures that I will be sharing with you on the platform. That is to say, lecture 6 and 7. Lecture 6 and 7, which means that we will have 7 lectures in general for discourse analysis. Is it clear?
Professor?
Yes, Sabah, any question?
Yes, Professor. Can you please give us, I ask whether you will give us the way we should answer the day of the exam or not about these questions.
It's going to be based upon your answers. I will be correcting your mistakes, of course, Sabah.
Okay, Professor.
I will be correcting your mistakes. So if you do the work, if you do the job in a serious and good way, then it means that you will find no problems during the day of the exam. If you are careless and won't, invest any effort to, perform this job, then it means that you will be failing during the day of the exam. Is this clear?
Discuss it among the people, or just send it to you via email or something like that?
You first send me your answers via the mail, and then we will devote a virtual session in which I will call you by your names and try to correct your mistakes. Is it clear, Sabah?
Professor.
Yes, Usama.
I didn't get well the question number 6. What is the power relationship in that situation? Should we elaborate of the power in media and discourse? I didn't get the answer well.
See, Usama, it depends on the kind of conversation speech you will be choosing. It depends. Because, as we said before, in any given discourse, you will find power relation. If there is a power relation, you say, yes, it exists, and the power relationship we have is the following. If there is no power relationship, then you just say there is no power relationship, and you have to convince me about that. Is it clear, Usama?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
You are now unmuted.
Welcome. Abdelmoula, do you have any question?
Yeah, it's considered the exam. So, are we going to be examining it to analyze the given discourse, or are we going to be dealing with a direct question?
No, you may have direct questions. To say theoretical and practical ones. You will have theoretical and practical ones, of course. Is this clear, Abdelmoula?
Yes, clear. Thank you.
Professor?
Sumaya.
Teacher, I didn't still understand what do you mean by power relationship. What do you mean by a relationship between the speaker and the listener? The power for the
We discussed this in class. We discussed this in class in relation to, critical discourse analysis. We basically said. Yes, Abdelmoula. Do you have an answer for this question?
Yeah, I have an answer.
Yes.
So we said that critical analysis is based on a power relation. For instance, politicians, speeches are always, if we want to say, are based on power relation, in that they try to convey messages to public that are basically based on power relation. That's mean trying to show using expression words in which they are in a position of power, while people are in a position of inferiority.
Submission.
Yeah.
Yeah, very good. And I still remember that I gave you the example of professor and the students. What about how did I explain this relation of power? Taking students and professor into consideration.
Professor?
Abdelmoula?
We see that in classroom we have a discourse, a conversation between teacher and his students, and the teacher kind of has a power over his students because he controls the classroom.
He controls the classroom. That's true. And students should, obey, the teacher. And of course, this is, traditional view of the classroom. Yes, even if it's traditional view, somehow traditional view. And many, people are still adopting this, teacher-centered, approach. Okay. Yes, this is the point. Is it clear, Miss, who asked this question? Is it clear now?
Yes, Professor. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions, please, dear students? Any other questions? Yes?
We're now unmuted.
Abdelmoula, you have any question?
No, I think there is no question, Professor.
Okay. Sabah?
So, Professor, in this activity, everyone can choose any kind of conversation or dialogue and try to answer about these questions.
Yes, this is what is mentioned, what is emphasized. This is what is said.
Conversation between a mother and son, or a teacher and professor, and the students, or anything like that.
Yeah, or friends, or as you like.
Okay.
A debate, for instance, a debate between, students, between classmates, conversation, political speech, governmental speech, as you like, preaching speech, as you like. Is it clear?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, Professor.
What is important for me is that, the way you will be answering the questions should be organized. It should be organized. That is to say, you should go step by step. Number 1, number 2, number 3. Do not try to skip any, question. Answer all questions properly and correctly, please. I all the time inform you that I'm not interested in the pieces of information you will be giving me, but I'm interested in the way you will be answering the questions. The way you will be answering the questions. Is it clear, this? Tabah.
I want to ask you whether we should answer about each question individually or as a paragraph or something like that.
No, individually. No, individually, please. Yeah, individually. Okay. No more questions?
Professor, I have a last question. I don't have your email, ma'am. Could you please share it with us?
I will send it to Mohammed, and he will, forward it to all students. Is it clear?
Okay, thank you so much. Thank you so much.
You are welcome. You are welcome. So let's call it a day, dear students, and looking forward to seeing you on Tuesday, God willing.
See you, Professor. Thank you for the lovely session.
You are most welcome. Goodbye.